When building a ship, it happens often that things seem like a great solution only to turn out later to be not. That's why boats do shakedown cruises and sea trials where things are heavily tested and allowed to break down to be fixed and improved before actually setting sail. My name is Gijs and this is my dad. And this is the 80-year-old Schoener Tijgerhaai. 2 years ago we started a major rebuild to get her ready for new adventures. And we're sharing the process with you. Subscribe to stay tuned. We are not in a sea trial stadium yet, but already we see things turn out not the way we want them. This usually happens, however, after I already posted a video about a certain subject. So then we just resolve the issue and move on. I don't want to give you the illusion that we do everything right the first time. So I have collected a couple of those problems, some big and some small, and our solutions. Starting with the steering gear. The whole thing was finished and recommissioned, and then 2 weeks later some leaks started to appear. They are not that hard to fix, but you have to drain all the hydraulic oil from the system before being able to get anything done. Apparently, from the bottom of the hydraulic tank up, the system contains 20 liters. That is fortunate, because we can fit all that in exactly one empty drum. Now it's a matter of removing the leaking coupling. It just needs a good clean, some fresh thread sealant and can be installed back. And the system can be filled again. I have done this twice now and it has been leak free for a couple of weeks. So I hope this was the last time for the next coming years. But you never know. Another small one is our toilet. We are very pleased with it because it always works and never clogs, so far. But the flushing panel is just appalling. Immediately after installation, I already got a comment from my mom that she could not read what each button did. And frankly, it just looks very cheap. So I contacted Japsco to ask if they had any alternatives. They didn't. So then I asked a friend with a sticker printer if we could do anything about it. And after an hour of fiddling and with some pictures generated by AI, we had something that looked much better and was actually readable. He printed it on a sticker and I could just put that over the original panel. Much better. The longest ongoing project was the installation of the hydraulic furlers. And we were thrilled that when it was finally finished, everything worked as planned. But then it didn't. After posting the video, we could not get the furlers running anymore on the battery-powered inverter. This is going to be somewhat of a technical story, but I found it an educational experience, so I hope you do as well. These furlers work with an hydraulic pump that is powered by single-phase 230 volts AC, which is what comes out of your wall outlet if you live in Europe, Africa, Oceania and most parts of Asia. That is not what comes out of our batteries though, because that is 24 volts DC. To turn that into 230 volts AC, we have an inverter that can supply a maximum power of 2.5 kilowatts. The hydraulic pump uses maximum 2.2 kilowatts, so that should work, one would think. However, there is a small challenge with single-phase electricity. To get to that, we have to go into the basic works of an electric motor. There are many different kinds, but I'm gonna simplify as much as possible and skip most of the details to get to the cause of our problem. The quickest and easiest way to understand it is to use a permanent magnet motor as an example, which is not actually the motor on our pump, but that doesn't matter in this case. So the hydraulic pump is powered by an electric motor. Basically, we put electricity in and the motor turns that into a spinny shaft, which is connected to a spinny pump. Simple, right? But how does it turn the electricity into a spinning shaft? Magnets, or even better, electromagnets. An electromagnet is a device that becomes magnetic when it's connected to electric power. Let's say inside an electric motor there is a magnet connected to the shaft that's free to rotate. If we now put current through an electromagnet here, it becomes magnetic and the shaft in the middle will turn to that magnet. If we now switch this electromagnet off and switch on the next, the shaft will turn to the next one and there we go, a spinning shaft. Switching the magnet on and off goes automatically because of alternating current. AC coming out of your wall socket makes a nice wave up and down over a neutral line in the middle, 50 or even 60 times a second, depending on where you live. When the line is above neutral, electric current wants to run from the line, which is more plus, to the neutral, which is more minus. And when the line is below neutral, electric current wants to run from the neutral, which is now more positive, to the line, which is now more negative. And this happens 50 times a second, on a frequency of 50 Hz. This is the same current that runs through our electromagnets. They can switch on and off 50 times a second. And even better, if the line goes from positive to negative, the north and south pole of the electromagnet change. So it goes from pulling the magnet in the middle to repelling it. Now we know how one electromagnet pushes and pulls. But what about the next? On three-phase electricity this is easy, because we have three of those lines waving around the neutral, and they are all offset from each other by equal time. So if the first electromagnet is connected to the first line, then we'll connect the second magnet to the second line, and the third to the third. They will then be automatically powered one after another, and the magnet in the middle will automatically follow. This is why all bigger electric motors use three-phase electricity. With single phase it's not that simple. Switching one magnet on and off the whole time is not gonna make the shaft spin. Our inverter only generates one phase, because for household appliances that's enough. But we do not want to start up the diesel generator for three-phase electricity just to furl in the sails. That's why we have a one-phase electric motor on the furlers. So how do we get a rotating magnetic field in a single-phase motor? Trust me, we're almost there. For that we need a capacitor, which is a device that can store energy like a battery, but it charges and discharges very fast. So when the line power is positive, the capacitor charges. And when the line power drops to negative, the capacitor still holds a bit of energy which it can discharge after that. Because it stores a bit of energy, the output of the capacitor always runs a bit behind that of the line. Now we connect the first electromagnet to the line and the second one as well, but through the capacitor. If the first one is now activated because the line is positive, the capacitor is still charging, so the second one is not activated yet. Now the line becomes negative, the capacitor still holds some charge, which it can give to the second electromagnet, which is activated after the first one switches off. And now we have a rotating magnetic field and a spinning shaft. And now we get to the problem. The downside of a capacitor is that it really wants to be charged. So as soon as it's connected to a power source, it draws massive amounts of energy to be charged up in a split second. This can be more than 5 times the rated power of the electromotor. Our inverter can only be overloaded to 5000 watts for a short time, but the electric motor needs double that. Should we have thought about that before? Yes, but we kind of hoped for the best. And it's a bit strange that it did work the very first time, but after that no more. To solve it, I started with the cheapest solution first, of course. This little box is called an inrush current limiter, For 15 milliseconds, it lowers the output voltage through a resistor, after which it switches to normal. This was not nearly long enough to slowly charge the capacitor. The second solution, a bit more sophisticated and a bit more expensive, is a soft starter. This device slowly increases the output voltage over a span of 5 seconds. But that also turned out to be not long enough to charge the capacitor without overloading the inverter. Now I only had one idea left, and that is a variable frequency drive. Normally, a variable frequency drive is used to control the speed of an electric motor by slowing down the speed of the alternating current, and so the rotating magnetic field. But there are frequency drives that can turn a single-phase input into a three-phase output at the same voltage. In other words, we don't need a capacitor at all. The frequency drive already outputs a rotating magnetic field. Normally, a single-phase electric motor is not meant to be connected to a three-phase power source, but it is possible. Some frequency drive manufacturers explain in the manual very detailed how to do it and which line to connect where. So I pulled out the capacitors and some electronics and followed the connection instructions. And there we go. The furlers turn without any power spike or overload in the inverter. Alright, enough theory for one video. I hope you learned something. Next time we'll continue in the saloon, but this is all for now. If you have any questions or disagree with my electric motor theory, please let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.